Welcome to Grace for Dyslexia. Today we address myths. This podcast is number 7. Rune is an exchange student attending an American university. He has traveled halfway around the world and he knows no one. Rune is from Thailand. He grew up in an average family and had attended a public school. Rune learned very early on he was different from other children. He could not seem to recognize or connect the characters, sounds, and words. About the time Rune was 8, he started to receive help with his language struggles and worked hard in school. But now Rune, at 18 years old, faces a new challenge, learning English so he can perform at university. Rune wants to do well as he is the first in his family to go to college. But he's worried his problems with language will hold him back. Rune relies on his Christian faith to help him with his journey in life. Rune gets settled into his dorm and spends time getting to know his roommate. Rune, like all other new students, got lost, was confused, and had to rethink his plan. But the first few weeks went well for him. As a freshman, he had to take an English class. This made Rune really nervous. Being from Thailand was hard, but with his dyslexia, he felt he really had something to worry about. After the first few writings in class, his professor called Rune aside to discuss his work. The professor shared his concerns with Rune's writings. He suggested he seek some help at student support services. Rune was not surprised by this one bit. He was a little concerned about what sort of help he might find in America. He made an appointment for the following week. Rune arrived for his appointment and spent a good deal of time explaining his concerns and problems. He mentions his dyslexia and how he is worried it may affect his work. The counselor smiled at him and said, "Rune, dyslexia doesn't exist in any other countries but English-speaking countries because our language is so blended." Rune's eyes widened. He felt himself get flushed. He said, "Then why did I require help with my native language for nearly 4 years to be able to be here in your office today? My dyslexia is real. My country of origin is only partially related to my difficulties with language. I am here to learn what you can do to help me with my English class. How can I be successful at this university?" The counselor was a little shocked at Rune's response. In trying to smooth over his feelings, he suggested that he let him check into things in more detail. They made another appointment for the following week. The counselor did some checking on dyslexia. He found that Thailand has a very robust dyslexia service community and very impressive numbers of students served in their country. The counselor realized he really knew little about dyslexia. He was pleased to find that the student support services had a tutor who was also from Thailand. The following week, Rune returned. In the office was a third person he had not met. He was introduced to Maddie. It was suggested that Rune and she work together on his English class and on his English skills in general. Maddie made plans to meet with Rune after English class twice a week for an hour. Maddie knew what he had gone through in school and was delighted to help another student from Thailand. She had been at university for several years and had the opportunity to learn English well enough to help transition other students from her country. Maddie learned about Rune and his dyslexia while she tutored him. Maddie and Rune worked together for several months till the end of the first semester. He passed his English class and had grown tremendously in his use of English in all areas. He still had problems related to his dyslexia, but soon found strategies for these problems. Rune went into second semester with a newfound energy. He and Maddie started seeing each other as boyfriend and girlfriend. They plan to marry when Rune finishes his degree. Inspired by 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. As I urged you when I went to Macedonia, stay there in Ephesus so that you may command certain people not to teach false doctrines any longer or to devote themselves to myths and endless genealogies. Such things promote controversial speculations rather than advancing God's work, which is by faith. Dyslexia. One myth about dyslexia is it only occurs in English-speaking countries. Be bold. Let others know what the myths are about dyslexia. Grace for Dyslexia is a podcast dedicated to Christian encouragement of children and adults who have or are struggling with dyslexia. All stories in Grace for Dyslexia are fiction. Names, characters, places, and events are the product of the author's imagination. Any similarities to actual events, locales, or persons living or dead is coincidental.